Have you been struggling to find a book that strikes your interest? Can you not seem to find the solution to your problem? Well, do I have a story for you? Have you ever heard of the Titanic? I'm sure that most of you have, but for those of you that have not heard of the Titanic, let me take you on an adventure to discover the Titanic and its history. All aboard the Titanic! The Titanic was made to be the best of the best as far as ships. The ship was built by Heartland and Wolff Shipyard in Belfast. The Titanic had two sister ships named Olympic and Britannic, which was originally called the Gigantic. The construction of the ship began on March 31, 1909. The ship was 882 feet long, 92 feet wide, and 59 feet from water level. That is the height of an 11-story building and about 4 blocks long. The ship weighed over 46,000 tons. It was the largest movable man-made object in the world at this time. The ship could hold up to 3,547 passengers and crew. Thousands of workers spent much of the time on the lavish interior and the 29 giant boilers that fired by 159 coal-burning furnaces that would power her 2 main steam engines. The ship had top speed of 23 knots, which is about 26 miles an hour. The Titanic had 16 watertight compartments which would close automatically when the water level reached a certain height. The ship was designed to stay afloat even if 2 of the compartments were flooded or if the first 4 were flooded. To build the Titanic, it cost $7.5 million. On April 10, 1912, the White Star RMS Titanic embarked on her maiden voyage across the Atlantic Ocean to New York. The ship had been said to be unsinkable. The Titanic was made to be the finest luxury and the latest technology of its time. On board, there was 2,240 passengers and crew. More than 100,000 people attended the launching of the ship. Some of these passengers were high-ranking officials, wealthy industrialists, dignitaries, and celebrities. Second class consisted of academics, tourists, journalists, and others. The largest group of passengers was the third class, which was more than 700 people. Even the most perfect of ships have their problems. On the day the ship left, there was a small coal fire in one of the bunkers, but that was not uncommon during these times. Even after the ship had left, the fire still wasn't completely put out. On departure, the ship almost collided with American Line's SS New York. With all these bad omens after leaving shore made people feel really uncertain about the trip. If the Titanic would have hit the other ship when departing, then it could have spared its encounter with troubles that led her to her final resting place. The Titanic made its way across the ocean, and everything seemed to be sailing quite smoothly until April 14th, 4 days after leaving the dock. The Titanic had started receiving reports of ice from other ships, but the Titanic didn't take much from the warnings. The ship was sailing on calm seas under a moonless clear sky. Then the ice that they had been warned about finally came into sight. A lookout saw the iceberg straight ahead and began to ring the warning bell and immediately called about what they had saw. As soon as they could, they reversed the engines and made a sharp turn away from the iceberg. The ship could not turn fast enough, but instead of making a direct hit, it grazed along the side of the ship and sprinkling ice fragments on the deck. Enough of that iceberg had been missed, at least that's what they thought. Little did they know that the iceberg's jagged underwater spur had slashed a 300-foot gash which was below the ship's waterline. With this giant gash, the Titanic was bound to sink. It was discovered that when the Titanic collided with the iceberg, the first 6 compartments were flooded. The bow of the ship was aiming down. The immediate figured out that they had only about an hour and a half left until it sunk, but they probably had a little bit longer. The lifeboats started to get loaded with passengers. The lifeboats can carry 1,178 people, which was far less than the actual number of people on the ship. People started loading on the lifeboats, but it didn't go as planned. The lifeboats were not getting loaded with the maximum number of passengers. The ship was in mad chaos and was steady sinking. The women and children were supposed to be the only ones allowed on the lifeboats, and once they had done that, the men could be allowed to have a spot. The ship was slowly sinking further and further into the icy cold ocean. Many people had already decided that they were going down with the ship, for example, the captain. Many women would not leave their husbands and decided to stay with them wherever they ended up. At approximately 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, the Titanic finally dove beneath the icy cold water. The ship was almost perpendicular with the lights still on when it finally made the dive. The Titanic had sunk, even though they said it was unsinkable. When people were saved from the lifeboats, there was only 705 survivors. Now that we have learned about the historic Titanic, let me introduce you to the awesome book that I was talking about that takes place on the Titanic. Gordon Colmay's Collision Course Titanic Series Number 2. Let me tell you what it's a little bit about. The Titanic is moving full steam ahead across the high oceans, ultimately towards its doom. But the adventure aboard the unlucky ship has the passengers Patty, Sophie, Julianne, and Alfie. Little did they know when they boarded the Titanic that their trip would be so full of hiding and seeking. All of their lives become intertwined. Within the luxuries of the room and the dark underbelly of the ship, a mystery unfolds. A secret killer may be on board, a legacy that may be jeopardized, and a truth that soon will be revealed. As all of these mysteries are happening on the ship, an iceberg appears out of the cold, icy night, and the stage is set for the final scene. Will they find out who the killer is? What legacy is jeopardized? What truth will be revealed? Find out. Read Collision Course and discover the hidden secrets.